Do you love cats?
I used to despise cats. I mean, a deep-seated, goes back many years, hatred for cats. I just found them repulsing. To have a litter box in your house and them tracking it everywhere, and then you're walking on with your bare feet on hardwood floors, and you just litter. It's just disgusting. It's just gross. But over the past 2 years, I've grown quite fond of cats.
You found socks now.
I don't know what's wrong. I mean, I would never own a cat, but I do see the appeal. I really do see the appeal. I always said the only exception is if I ever find a cross-eyed cat somewhere, it's coming home with me. I think that's the cutest thing. It's like a slightly cross-eyed cat. I mean, how could you say no to that face? It's impossible.
Those litter tray trails are going to be all over the place if you get one of them.
Yeah, I know. I just hope at that point, like, I can afford a house enough with wings, and that cat can have the West Wing and never have just out of sight, out of mind. But no, I'm much more of a dog person. I fostered a dog last year for a couple months, and it's a tremendous amount of work. It's not for me personally. I'm just not really an animal person, to be quite honest. But I see the appeal of both 100%. So yeah, I'm a somewhat reformed cat lover. Nice.
Okay. Yeah. I do like them. I would kind of like one, but they're a bit of a tie. Like, you've got to look after, like, so I just live here on my own. So it'd be nice to have like some company that I could be like a crazy cat man, just get like 8 of them and just,
Yeah. But there's also a balance with that. Like, I have about 14 plants in my house. I've had them for like probably 15 years. I've always been like a plant dad because I grew up with plants. So that's my happy medium. A living organism aside from myself in my home.
I have 5 and 6 and I have 8 and 5 of them are dead. So I tended really well to them, and I'll be honest, I'm just bored of the ones I've got currently. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna, and they kind of got too big. They're like, you can't see them, but they're kind of behind where my screen is, and I don't know if I'm a bit bored of that now. So they're just looking really sad. I think they're probably beyond repair. Having looked at one of them, it's kind of
like, you know when they're gone. You know where they're gone. I get that too. It is. I guess compared to an animal, it's a lot less maintenance. I think it's training wheels to get an animal. Like, you get a plant. If you could take care of it for about a year and it's not dead, then you could think about getting a goldfish. And if that survives or something, you can get a cat or a dog and then you could work yourself up to like a relationship and then, kids. And you just play, like, you microdose yourself into the experience of having a responsibility for something alive aside from yourself.
Well, I hope my 5 dead plants are no reflection on any sort of any of my personal skills.
Well, listen, you got credit. You got 3 alive, so that means something. It's not nothing.
Hanging on threads, I think, is what. Well, two have said 3 are in the bathroom, so it's naturally humid in there anyway. So
that helped. Actually, I have a humidifier here. I have like another one out, and I move this. Whatever I'm at, just so I can have a nice, air quality is really important to me, but it's also important to the plants too. So they enjoy it during winter months.
There's something actually kind of weirdly, without sort of trying to force this into some sort of useful conversation, but the something that I find having plants around and just being in nature, I know there's so many studies to do with how nature affects like your mental health and your kind of I don't quite know how to describe it. I guess your sort of wellness, I feel so much better I've been kind of trying to go running more. It sounds more like New Year's resolutions and stuff, but it's actually just something that I guess happens to have coincided with the New Year's. But getting out in nature, I've actually found has been really helpful for me. And the reason I kind of go onto that subject is I know I've seen you share some things on your Instagram about things like sort of self-improvement and about kind of maybe referencing to the sort of music world, sort of doing your own thing and finding your own identity. I know this might feel like a stretch from dead plants, but
it's a beautiful segue.
yeah, until you point it out. Yeah, and then it kind of breaks the illusion. But yeah, I guess I don't know what my question was. How many plants do you have again?
I got 2 trees and 4 plants.
Yeah, no, Actually, I suppose no. My serious question was that. So, for example, I live in a city, or just outside in Birmingham, in the UK, and there's a distinct sort of lack of nature. Is that? I guess having plants around, is that actually something that there's a conscious effort as part of your, like, I guess, wellness and like.
For me, it's two things. I just grew up with them. Ever since I was a baby and a kid, there was always plants around the house. My mom was she loved plants and she had them all the time, sort of my grandmother. But that aside, I'm very into interior design, and a lot of it is just more a matter of balancing aesthetic. Sometimes, depending on the area that I'm working on, I have a certain sort of focal point of mood. Some rooms are a little bit more modern, some rooms are a little bit more rustic and antique, sort of bordering on brutalism a little bit. So I feel with the greenery and the sort of nature kind of balances that a little bit, just so it's not leaning so hard in one direction. Because I think one of the most important things in my life and my lifestyle and how I live it, and it sort of seeps into my art as well, it's a matter of balance, and moderation. And everyone's view of that is a little bit different. But I mean, I think going back to your segue there with regards to, self-improvement and things of that nature, a lot of it has to do with being like brutally honest with yourself, to many extents. And often we're not, because we know the secrets and we know this, whether we're conscious or it's in our subconscious in terms of, the habits we form, the thoughts that we constantly, rehearse in our heads, rehearsing things like past arguments or past disagreements, and really obsessing over what you feel like you would have, we all do it, and I think it comes to a point of being honest with what balance works for you in terms of self-reflecting into the past to make yourself better for now, and being productive about that process, to self-improve. I also think it's also a matter of having wonderful people in your life who can tactfully call you out on your shit, and that is a very difficult thing, especially for a public figure, because obviously, listen, we all have egos. I have one, you have one, we all have one. And a lot of the time I felt like myself in the past, it became sort of like a defense mechanism, and, oftentimes when that ego gets activated, you get triggered, it's not a healthy thing to do in the long run. It's fine when you're young, but even then it's annoying, because you turn people off, no one wants to be your friend, Don't know
what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think beyond that, from a business perspective, if you're an authentic person, you're not playing a caricature like a YouTube personality, or if it's not who you actually are as a person, it's more of like a character, that can really turn off your fans too, and what ends up happening there is that they just won't give you the time of day, right? Because at the very least, artists just want people to lend them their ears for 3 minutes or 4 minutes, which is a huge ask, because every artist is asking for that, right? So a lot of how people experience music is, they listen with their eyes. It's the first thing that they're going to really experience is the visual and how that person's acting, what the body language is like, and, even subconscious things like what they're wearing, the cadence of their voice, how they're inflecting certain things, the room that they're in. It's just all these little tiny details that make up the big picture of how we perceive that artist. And yeah, I mean, it's important to check yourself for the longevity of not only, relationships and friendships and career relationships as well, but also for just like your audience. And that requires a balance too, because you don't want to just obsess over what other people are thinking about you, right? Because I mean, Jesus Christ, it's incredibly unhealthy, incredibly unhealthy. Mm-hmm. But, I would never say that I don't care what people think. Because I feel like if you don't care what people think, how are you going to get better? At some point we have to take into consideration social cues and what people like. If a friend comes up to me and is like, "Hey, do you mind if I talk to you about something that you did?" that's caring what people think because you value their opinion, right? So that's also a balance. And I don't know where I went off on this tangent, but I feel like it all connects to some degree.
So what is your favorite plant? Okay.
Plant.
No, don't know. Go on, don't know. No, there's a lot of things that that I personally sort of resonate with in that sense. That it's funny. I was talking to a friend literally only this morning, who is someone who this is really going to sound like I'm trying to spin this back to me, and I promise I'm not. It's more to relate it to what you're sort of saying, because I have quite honest conversations with people on the podcast, and like I ended up having a breakup about a month ago, and the whole thing you said about moving on versus reflecting on, like thoughts and how you feel about stuff, and like I kind of thought like I'm definitely in this weird place for myself where I'm not finding that balance at all between reflecting on and like I guess acknowledging what I feel about stuff. And the irony is when this goes out, maybe I'll be in a different place. I don't know. Right. But it sort of resonated with me because I fully am not there right now, in terms of, and the reason I'm being honest about it now is because I ask a lot of people questions on the podcast that maybe are quite intrusive. So I feel like it would be wrong for me not to do the same. And then, funnily enough, when I was talking to my friend this morning, one of the reasons I wanted to reconnect with him, because I'd neglected to sort of chat to some of my friends because I was quite comfortable in a relationship. It happens. I know I'm not the only one. I've had friends that have done it. And he was exactly the sort of person that I wanted to have that connection with, because like you were saying about these friends that call you out on stuff. Like, so for example, he was telling me this morning how a mutual friend of ours who I thought I got on quite well with, he was saying he went to see him recently, and he actually had to say to him, and I kind of respected him for this, but it was a weird move. He said to him, like, they spent a couple of days together, and he was like, I'll be honest, man, like, I felt like you're just not interested in talking to me kind of thing. Like, he wasn't engaging. Apparently he was very just like, it all felt like a bit of a show. He was a very performative kind of person. And my friend just said to him, like, in a totally honest way, he was just like, I'm sorry, man, but I don't feel like we're having like a real conversation here. And and the guy just stormed off and was not happy. I mean, how do you take that? It's a hard thing to have someone say to you. But like, I had quite a lot of respect for the guy. And I know I've just gone on a tangent myself. I've met your tangent with my own tangent.
Balance.
Exactly. We talked about it, yeah. But my point was more to, I guess, just agree with you with a personal kind of reflection, I guess.
Yeah, it's rough, man. It's totally rough. And I mean, I'll be 38 in June, 36, because I've been in and out of therapy all my life. I mean, I had a very, very super not nice childhood, right? We all go through things. And I'm very familiar with the process of productive therapy is, right? And, if you're not even if you can't even be honest with a stranger like that, and obviously it has to do with trust, chemistry with another person, because sometimes, they're blue and you're yellow, just make a really shit green, and that's perfectly fine. You just move on from it. It doesn't mean that person's bad, doesn't mean that you're a bad person, just means that the vibe's off, and that's fine. But the first step, I think, with that is, a certain honesty with yourself, and then giving your friends the same honesty that you gave to yourself, right? And that's tough because everyone has a different style in terms of like how they're going to be turned off by that, right? And for me, with the people that are closest to my life, like I approach honesty with them all completely differently. Some people are extremely sensitive, and I'm aware of that, so you have to sort of work around it. And it might take a little bit more work, but the thing that means the most to me is a positive, productive end result and a positive conversation. So sometimes that might be calling yourself out on something to set up the conversation, if you're having an issue with a friend who's neglecting you because they're having a relationship or they're consumed by a relationship. Yeah, when I was in college, like, I was just obsessed with this girl, man. I was just with her all the time, and there's a couple of small little pieces of information there. When you're in college, you're younger, right? And you're more susceptible to that depending on your neurochemistry, but like you're susceptible to that obsessive dopamine hit and all that oxytocin and all those sort of like, those good feelings. But as you become older, I think the premise for a lot of people is that you really realize who your family and your friends are, and you want to spend more time with them. Because that's the one thing that I feel is common when you talk to older people who are like, maybe, very ill or on their deathbed is, I wish I didn't work as hard. I wish I spent more time with family and friends, right? We hear that all the time in these interviews. And when you see a pattern like that, it kind of makes you think as you get older, like you really understand what means the most to you, and that might be a really good segue to have that conversation with someone, just calling yourself out for doing the same thing and relating to them, because we're all human. No one's perfect, but yeah, I mean, to your point, it means a lot that you share that, because especially in a public forum too, I think that we're definitely entering into some sort of emotional renaissance where, honesty and mental health are really on the forefront of what helps people to relate to one another, whether they're a public figure or not, and I think it's fantastic. It's really cool thing to see that shift.
I know what you mean. I think I think the sad thing is we're seeing like the range is going both ways. So you're seeing more people sharing stuff and being open about it, but then you're seeing so much more fakery on the other end as well. And I think because by definition you're getting that response where you're seeing more fakery, so you're seeing more people go to the extreme of doing the opposite. And I think that's a bit of a weird sort of two things that coexist that you maybe wouldn't think that would happen. But yeah. Do you sort of and again, it can be as personal or impersonal as you like, but in terms of you talk about asking yourself questions, I guess two questions I think would be useful for people to hear would be or having conversations with yourself, or conversations with other people. What conversations do you think you've had with yourself? And then as another question, sort of what conversations have you had with other people that you particularly value looking back on, you think that was a really positive thing?
So I think the first thing that really was quite a shocker to me, I had probably my biggest ego death at 36, which was like maybe about a year and a half ago. And really what it had to do was with realizing how it was the new things that triggered my defensive ego mechanism, right? And when I sort of like paused for a second, because I meditate a lot, and I suggest everyone do it. It changed my life. It really did change my life, because it teaches you to be mindful. It like if I said something wrong in this interview and you get that rush and you're sweating, afterward, a lot of us tend to just like, I'm just going to forget about it, or when you said something stupid in a group of friends, and you obsess over, why did I say that? There's a healthy way to obsess over it, right? And again, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of improving yourself. But the main question I asked myself was, honestly, what am I so insecure about? Because I feel when you're compensating ego, when it gets triggered or something, you're compensating for something. Like the universe will always demand a balance, right? And that's not a healthy balance, because you get towards feeding the ego with thoughts and thinking that you're great and that you're special and all these different things. And, it's just like really shitty patchwork on sheetrock, you got to tear that shit down, you have to start from scratch. Like the wood's rotten. You have to get a new frame, right? And the biggest thing with me is just like what am I so insecure about, And on the surface, I think it's like I'm living my dream. I have a beautiful home. Like I have a beautiful car. Like, I have this wonderful career that I'm grateful for. Like I have a signature guitar. I have all these things. I've toured the world. And, and on top of that, you have people telling you that you're great too all the time. It's like fucking recipe for disaster, It's kind of like, having a bottle filled with water water and sand, and you're just shaking it over and over and over again. Like it's just like this fucking chaos of thought, you know? But when you meditate, like you put the bottle there, it keeps spinning a little bit, but it sort of calms down a little bit, you know? And then eventually all the sediment sort of collects in the bottom, in the middle, you know, and you could just see it for what it is. That's all your shit. But you can't see it when it's spinning around. It's just this cloud of fog. Like none of it makes any sense, you know? And people like, God, like we all live like that year after year, day after day. But it was when I started like really getting into like mindfulness training that I just realized it's like, yeah, I'm, you know, a part of me was actually afraid to release this new record because it's so different, you know? And why would that trigger a fear response? Well, it's incredibly vulnerable. There's a high risk, you know? And I thought to myself in that instance, because that was the thing that sort of like triggered a lot of things in terms of my thought process, was this record, because I'm investing so much time and effort into it. And, you know, and you think about, all right, well, why am I insecure about it? Well, for me, this record is a lot of, you know, my growing up, you know, what I grew up around, the people I grew up around, the music I grew up around, you know, and that's not something I really shared like in black and white like this. It's not a record where it's a metal record with a salsa section. You know, it's like from beginning to end, you know, a salsa, samba, Latin fusion song, or it's this type of song, or it's this, you know, so it goes really hard into the authentic blueprints of what that genre is about. And like that music's like my heart. Like that's what I listen to all the time. You know, I'm not necessarily listening to metal, which I think is fantastic. I think is great. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But you know, so that was quite a you know, it was quite an eye opener in that respect. And then I thought to myself, the question that tipped it over was, well, what am I more afraid of? Am I more afraid of being vulnerable and taking a huge, massive risk with this record? Or am I more afraid of not honoring an idea and acknowledging a part of me that actually exists? I would say the latter holds a little bit more weight than this superficial sort of like, I'm afraid it won't do, you know? It's like, you know, so that's when I started to really soften to the experience. And then it just sort of, like, now I'm more excited about this record than I ever have been, because it's me, you know, it's a huge part of who I am and where I came up from. And, you know, and that was the way that I made peace for it. So I would suggest anyone, you ask the question, what I suggest people ask themselves, when you get triggered, just be honest with why you're getting triggered, you know, and sometimes it takes therapists to help you, you know, sometimes listen, if we were so honest with ourselves all the time, we wouldn't need psychologists, we wouldn't need therapists, we would just know what the problem is. It's not that easy, man. You know, sometimes you need to soundboard off a friend that you trust, or sometimes it's better with a stranger because you have nothing at stake, you know, like they're there to help you, you know? So that was my process, and what I genuinely feel it's worth for every person to ask themselves.
Yeah. There's always that knee-jerk reaction when you're walking towards sort of something that you, like, you know you should do for you, but there's that immediate, it's the delayed gratification in some way, and I don't just mean in the sort of form of like, I mean in the sense of, it's almost the reverse. It's more that you're delaying, you kind of by what's the word, allowing yourself just to do things that you know you shouldn't be doing. You're just delaying, or maybe spreading the upset across the next 5 or 10 years and not experiencing it then and there. And I think that's something that I'm trying to teach myself, to step voluntarily into the situations that I'm a bit more afraid of. Like, for example, I'm sort of umming and ahhing about whether I can kind of sing okay. So I play guitar, and I can kind of sing okay. I know I write good songs, and I know I can write good vocal parts, but I'm definitely nervous about the idea of being a frontman. Like, and it's not that I'm afraid of, it's a weird one. I'm not afraid of standing on stage, and the idea of singing, assuming I can deliver it, doesn't really scare me. So I don't quite know what it is that I'm, you know, sort of trying to figure out there. It's a weird process, but I found a lot of things in my life that I've been trying to overcome have to do with that stepping out of your comfort zone. It's not even just your comfort zone; it's just sort of your natural pattern of behaviour that isn't so helpful. Have you found? I mean, I'm guessing from what you said, the meditation is particularly useful with acknowledging that. Oh,
Yeah,
hang on,
because
I'm stopping myself.
yeah, you have to sit with yourself, and you have to sit with your thoughts, and you have nothing to pay attention to but your breath and your thoughts. It's like going 80 down a freeway. It's like every thought's a billboard, and it just like sort of passes and passes. And doesn't mean, meditation isn't a matter of like stopping on the highway. You die if we're continuously living, right? So there's thoughts all the time, but it's just a matter of like letting them pass, and within the silence of meditation, it's like there's no first 10 minutes is called monkey mind. Like you just can't, it's like food, sex, music, food, sex, music. Oh, I have to do laundry, food, it's just like this obsessive, it's like you're on autopilot, but sometimes you'll come across a thought that really is painful, or embarrassing or humiliating or traumatizing or whatever it is. And, you sort of have to sit with it. And I think with regards to, you being a frontman, for instance, like I can relate, man. I can be a very extroverted person, but for the most part, I'm quite an introvert. I hate leaving my house, and I never wanted to be a frontman, dude. I just wanted to be the Kurt Cobain in a band, write the songs, play a couple solos, and done. I don't want to be a frontman. Like I had no interest in that at all. Like I don't want to sing. I don't want to be like the center of attention like that. It's just, because it's vulnerable, man. Everyone is looking at you. Everyone is looking at you, right? Especially on stage. And, I think one thing that might be helpful to you, I'm not sure, but one thing that was helpful to me was watching all like the live DVDs, of, Vi or Yngwie or, these guitar instrumentalists or Metallica or whatever it was, and just studying them, not watching it to enjoy, watching it as a student and watching what they did and just over and over and over and over and over again, how they did their banter, how they went from one song to the other, what they did when they were, what their facial expressions were. It's like, it's very, very, when you're young, it's like you're like a sponge and you take all these sort of cues and then you find your middle ground on what you're comfortable doing and not doing, and eventually, because it's just like putting yourself in. My desire to play shows weighed a lot more than my fear of being a frontman at those shows. So I went and did it, and the more I did it, it's like as I would be on stage, I would be rehearsing like Yngwie would do this thing here, and then I wouldn't think it on purpose. It was just a very parallel experience of me being on stage and me watching them on stage. Like we're on stage. And it sort of clicked, and then I would try different things, and I would see how the audience would react to that thing. And they were like this, they were validating. It's like, all right, they responded to this, and when I kept doing that, it was, it got better and better. And, now I'm pretty confident, performing on stage. My approach is always to make it fun and engaging and do, just wild things, to make it fun for everyone. Cause it's like, if you're going to a rock show, man, it has to be fun, or if you're going to any concert, if you're seeing anyone like, whether it's like Dave Matthews or Santana or whatever, I think it's, you're giving them a very unique experience that they can't get off the record. If they want to hear it perfect, listen to the record, but I want it to be memorable, and fun. And, but yeah, the more I just rehearsed that, like, it got to the point where like, it was easy for me to be more uninhibited and take chances, but it wasn't overnight. It took years, because I just didn't want to do it. I didn't even want to be an instrumentalist. Like that was just weird little thing that just happened, and here I am. So.
Without sort of, again, in terms of segues, without trying to sort of forcibly spin this into your next release, which would, and sound all sort of promo-y, but actually what I was going to talk about was there's a definite injection of like a sense of humor a sort of I don't quite know, just a personality really from actually. Then you talk about, you know, people consume music visually quite a lot of the time, you know. I could definitely see an injection of your personality. Like, say I knew nothing about you, I could certainly at least hazard a guess as to what you're a bit like from watching the video, you know. Is that something that you talk about, obviously picking up on these habits of the people that you admire? Do you actively think about injecting yourself in there, or does it just come naturally now?
I don't. It just happens. I think the most important thing for me is working. Well, there's a couple of things. It's working smart and not hard. And I'm just, there's not much left of me after doing all these things to be fake or to be not myself. It's easier to be yourself, and it's better to be yourself, because from a branding perspective, being unique is always better than being the best, because you'll never be the best. It's just stop. It's not going to happen. But the one thing that you can do to separate yourself from everyone is to be yourself. And it's both easy and hard. It's hard because you have to be vulnerable and you have to love yourself to some extent and be okay with yourself and know what you're really good at and know what you're not good at in order to show the best sides of yourself, right? And on the flip, it just, like, the best way to be unique is to be yourself. And it's easy. Once you're comfortable with yourself as a person, it's really easy to just, it just happens, you know? I think whenever I'm producing a music video or, you know, or if I'm on stream or anything, I mean, I would say, like, I feel like the same person. Like, I don't feel like, you know, there's different aspects of it, right? So, like, obviously we're having a very serious conversation. And whenever I'm talking about serious topics, like, I'm you know, I approach it with a level of respect, you know, but when I'm having a good time, you know, it's like, you know, I'm like a cartoon version of myself, you know. It's just like this exaggerated, like, humorous, tongue-in-cheek. I think if I can sum that up, it's, I don't take myself seriously at all. I don't. But I take what I do in my career extremely seriously, you know. And whether or not that comes across in a positive or negative way to someone, because everyone has their own version of you that they know, it really just doesn't matter, because it's none of my business. You know, the only thing that I can do is just be authentic, because I think, honestly, no matter where someone is in their career, it's important to somewhat relate to people, you know. And I feel if you're authentic with what you do and your intentions, whether it's the concept record or a visual or how you speak or the things you speak about or the things you write about, you know, you cast a wider net in that regard. You know, they may not like the music, but they can at least respect you as a person or respect you as an artist or recognize what you're really good at. Now, whether they recognize that or they focus on what you're bad at, again, that's not any of my business, you know? But no, it really does come naturally. Like, I don't even really think about it, you know, but yeah, it's all about having a good time, you know? And I felt like if I was an actor on top of it, it would suck the fun out of it for me. And then why do it, you know?
I like the, I suspect you might know him, Al Joseph, sort of instrumental guitar player, plays keys, all guitars. Do you know the guy?
Yeah, I'm aware of him.
Oh, okay, yeah, because he said something quite cool about just being like a person first, and then a guitar player being the supplementary sort of thing. You know, a lot of people base their whole identity around being a musician, or whatever it is that they do in their line of work. You know, like, there's the kind of, it's something that I've heard raised quite a few times where people say, what do you do? And everyone's immediate response is to say their job title, you know.
Well, in the States, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, it's the same here. It's the same here for sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, if I tell people, yeah, although I come off a bit pretentious, wouldn't I? I teach guitar. If I said, well, I inspire and I do that, everyone would be like, fuck off. Like,
well, it's a matter of how you approach that question, right?
Yeah.
Because when I toured Europe and I would have conversations with people, whether it be for press or anything like that, and we would just be hanging out, like, maybe I'll take them to lunch or something. I'm like, I posed a question like this. I say, what keeps you busy? I'll say, what do you do? Because when you say, what do you do? Obviously it's insinuating like, what do you do for a career? But if I say, what keeps you busy? It's different. They're going to talk about, more oftentimes than not, what their passion is and sort of what relates to that, right? Because I mean, everyone, I guess if you have a day job, everyone's working to 8 hours, and that's just like a default, but what keeps you busy? It's like, what are you thinking about when you're at work? What's keeping you busy here? And like I always, like, if you're a socially inept person or like socially awkward or anything like that, and you have trouble talking to people and you want an open-ended question, ask them that in that way. What keeps you busy? And you'll be surprised. And I've had some of the most amazing conversations with people just by asking that. And I definitely noticed a difference between when I ask people that in the States and when I've asked people that in Europe. Maybe in the UK is like very closer to the States than like, Poland or Spain or France. But yeah, it's a really interesting sort of way to set up a conversation. But yeah, that's interesting to hear that the UK is sort of the same way like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely stealing that. That's a very good way of sort of initiating a conversation that encourages people to go beyond, what, like the standard, the job title, or like because then they'll say, if they love their job, they'll tell you about their job, and if they hate their job but they got
right.
something else they're really passionate about, you'll hear about that, because they'll say, oh, I do this 8-hour job, but in the evenings I play guitar, I don't know, whatever, like,
exactly,
which is, I haven't thought. I'm definitely stealing that, so that's my I feel like I've that's my
it's not mine.
Take that chunk out of that's what I've learned so far. Sure. This sort of ties in some of the stuff you said. I noticed, again, doing the flip through the Instagram, you sort of said you were sort of, I suppose the best word is venting about sort of the trends and people sort of hopping on trends and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I suppose from a different angle, do you think there's a way? Yeah, because we're very much encouraged by social media. I mean, it's very much rewarded if you hop on these trends. Right. And almost sometimes it feels like the more pointless the trend, somehow the more viral it goes, which is just a whole other thing. But do you think there's a way that we could sort of, I guess, cultivate a trend-setting culture that is a positive thing?
Well, I think it's like a feedback loop to some degree, because trends don't come out of nowhere. Someone does it, right? Someone starts it, someone creates a filter, someone creates the sound bite or whatever it is. And that's coming from a place of originality to some degree. And then that originality is copied and copied and copied and copied and copied. So I like to look at things as many ways as possible. So you could look at it like, all right, if you look all the way past the trend itself, it's like, all right, probably the original, the origin is original, but it's the copying of it over and over and over again. But on the flip side, isn't that what we do when we learn how to play guitar? We're copying Yngwie's licks, we're copying John Petrucci's licks, we're copying this and that, and it sort of trains you to know what it is that you love, right? And that's why it's like I'm always like a moderate in terms of like thinking about or demonizing certain things. And obviously that clip was, it's authentic because that's truly what I felt about it, because my viewpoint at that juncture was seeing it for what it is in the moment, because it's a trend at that point, and trends feed anxious people. They do. They just simply feed anxious people who are, anxious about numbers or anxious about exposure. And I understand that it's important, but I think they lose sight of the real goal because it's so far away. What created the trend? Originality for the most part, but it's like low resolution. They can't really see it for what it is. So they see the trend, but they don't see the purpose of, like, just be original, do something original. And to some degree, again, it's like when you look at it from both sides, it's it has to coexist, because the whole thing, if you're an original person, you're putting out original media or content or whatnot, you hope that that becomes a trend, right? And that you'll gain a following from it. So, there's good and bad about it, but I think that, with how TikTok in particular as a platform is changing human behavior in terms of attention span and, what viral content qualifies as viral content. There's a lot of things that artists in particular have to take into consideration. The easiest thing to do is, again, just be yourself. Even if you take a certain trend and you put your own spin on it to make it a little bit more original, you continuously do that over time. One day you'll wake up and be like, oh my God, I'm not really copying anyone. Everyone's sort of copying me. And that's great. But I think just being, again, mindful about what it is that you're doing. If you're a musician doing a funny comedy trend, if that goes viral, you're only going to be viral for that comedy trend. No one's going to give a fuck about your music. I think that's a trend that actually, an issue that a lot of YouTubers fall into. Unfortunately, they're very talented, but if they're doing like sketch comedy, or they're doing a trend, or they're doing something, and then they try to go release new music, like, no one really takes you seriously because you're the comedian, or if you're doing gear reviews and you start doing original music, it's like, good luck. It's hard because you just cause this sort of confusion in the marketplace. I do artist coaching and consulting. And a lot of the artists, that I work with is kind of like, they have reviews for like a couple of weeks, and they'll have covers, and then they'll have this all on their YouTube channel. It's like, what is the message that you're trying to say? The best thing to do, try one thing for a full year, just a full year of trying one thing. If it doesn't work, move on. There's no rules to anything, but that's like a general sort of approach, because clearly what you're doing might not be working. And as we all know, time passes swiftly and opportunity is really lost. So, just kind of like, be honest with what it is that you want to say, and if you feel that you have the competent language to say something in that, that industry or that genre or that whatever, give it a shot, man. Like, what do you got to lose?
Do you sort of, in terms of hopping on, you talk about, say, for example, try something for a year, or I guess that process of kind of changing opening up your options, and maybe not changing a direction, but opening up your options. Has there been any sort of turning points in your life where you've done that kind of, okay, I'm just going to try this, and it's actually ended up working quite well?
I tried it early on, and thank God I tried it early on, because I feel like, I know what I went through changing this new record, but when I released my second EP, The Speed of Dark, there's 4 songs on there: Acid Rain, Angels Call Me to Grave, The World Burning Around Me, and Sea of Heartbreak. Now, Sea of Heartbreak's a ballad. A straight up ballad. And it's in between a progressive song called Acid Rain, which is nuts. Like, that song is just like, is very out of left field. But I didn't care. I wanted to write it. I felt a connection to it, and I felt it was good, and I did it. And, that EP did very well, but 2 contrasting songs, Acid Rain and Sea of Heartbreak, are like some of my biggest songs in my entire discography. And I think there's something to be said about that. If in a musical sense, if you have a lot of range, you have the ability to reach a lot more people, I think one of the issues that a lot of musicians face is that, especially progressive, or virtuosic players, musicians, they listen to a lot of different types of music, especially the ones in metal in particular, like progressive metal or heavy music. Oftentimes we're listening to a tremendous amount of other genres. As opposed to someone who listens to rap, for instance, they're probably just listening to rap. I can't imagine someone who listens to Kanye and on the side they listen to like In Flames. Very unlikely. But someone who listens to In Flames probably likes a couple Kanye songs, right? Or can appreciate them. And, with that being said, I think it's the reason why a lot of musicians struggle when they're in a band, for instance, or they're known for doing one type of music predominantly, and they really struggle when they have this part of them that they're like neglecting, and eventually what happens, you see them, they make a solo project, right? And they'll do their own thing at some point, or they'll break away from the band to do that solo project. They'll still be in the band, but I definitely think that there's this sort of superiority complex when people feel like they've graduated above metal. I feel like when because obviously I think a lot of like neo soul and fusion and stuff like that within guitar playing is very popular now, but I definitely sense a bit of a superiority complex with those individuals because they feel like they graduated, they came from metal, and then they sort of do something new, and they almost feel like listening to metal is a little bit more immature, something that you do when you're younger or in high school. And I don't think that's the case. You don't move above it. It's a, I fucking hate this word, but it's a journey, man. It's like it moves this way. It's just like you're moving along the path of what influences you. You're not just, it's not like you're above metal and you're sort of like, but the reason why I know that is because I've had conversations with other people who validated that, and I've had it myself, and that was part of that sort of ego death. I'm like, well, I have an ego about changing my genre, but at the same time, I'm terrified to do it. It makes no fucking sense, but it's the truth. And I think that, again, like don't neglect a part of yourself, man. Like just do what it is that you want to do. What's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? It doesn't do well. Oh, well, I talked about this in one of the posts. And I would, it's something that I don't necessarily talk about often, but it was an experience I had with another guitar instrumentalist years ago. We were doing the show together, and just talking about our upcoming releases and what we're trying to do and what we're excited about. And so when I shared what Away with Words Part 2 was going to sound like word for word, facial gesture for facial gesture, he goes, you really think that's going to do well? And at that time, man, that was rough because I hadn't done any of the work that I needed in order to respond from a place of peace. Thankfully my wit, and I just thinking off the top of my head, I was like, I really don't care if it does well. And then he it kind of shut him down, and that gave me enough of a moment to be like, because he really fucking got me like in the nerve, with an insecurity. And, and now I could look back at it and be like, well, it totally makes sense, because I can understand. And now obviously seeing this individual's career and what they do, it makes perfect sense on how they were speaking from a place of insecurity because they just simply don't have the range that I have. I may not have this necessarily the technical ability that they have, but one thing I've made peace with, and I'm grateful for now that I struggled with in the past, was being able to, write in different genres and take more risks. And, and just seeing the knee-jerk reaction, like you were mentioning before, in real time like that, and looking at it, years back, both of those perspectives, I was like, damn, man, like it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild, especially thinking about it in a place of, again, after having made peace with it and now being super excited about it. So, but there's all sorts of emotions with regards to different categories that the ego is applied to, but at the end of the day, everyone has different strengths. Everyone has different strengths. Some people are fine composing in their rooms, and then they get on the stage to improvise and they can't. Some people, can only do that, and they can't really take advantage of the technological advances like Guitar Pro or whatever it is that's out there, There's all sorts of strengths, and no one is better than anyone else. No genre is better than anything else either. It's not an age thing. It's not a period in your life theme. It's not an immature thing to listen to any specific type of music. You could be 50-year-old and still listening to Yngwie. Like, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. That's cool, man. But I have no idea what the question it is that you asked me.
I think I was asking you about your song that's better than other metal songs because it's not metal. I think that's what I was asking you about.
So Steel Heartbreak was on that record, and then Universal Language is pretty consistent. And when I did Away with Words Part 1, there's a song called Five that's on that record. That's the last song on Part 1, and it's another ballad, but it sort of borders it like dips my little pinky toe into the lake of country because it's a little bit twangy, just a little bit. But yeah, I've sort of unintentionally sort of microdosed my audience into, being prepared for a release like Away with Words Part 2 for a number of years without really realizing it, And I'm glad that I took those chances, because now I'm not nearly as afraid as I think I would be if I was doing metal the entire time, because then at that point it would be much more of a risk, because this is how I make my living, and when you're doing something crazy like that, like you're risking, the longevity of your career. It doesn't mean that you can't get it back, but it means that there might be a lull at that point. And I don't feel like that's going to happen, because I've made peace with this. So I have success from a different perspective, and that's the most important thing for me, is just knowing that I'm just always doing and writing from the heart, and being authentic about that.
I liked what you said a few times about like ego deaths, plural, that kind of to me implies a sense of like you can actually, it's not just about like, you don't just fix everything once, like you, and I think I've heard you refer to it as a plural thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is quite important as well. I think the idea that it's not just about sort of, I'm trying to think how to sort of phrase this, but it's about sort of small, I don't want to just say about small gains and marginal gains, but it's about just maybe changing the direction of your life that subtle little bit. Like I've been focusing on, I've got a list of things every day that I try and do that I literally tick them off, because if I don't tick them off and write them down, I will forget. It's on a spreadsheet, which makes me sound really, really self-obsessed, but it's useful because like it's little things, like I just make sure I sort of drink enough water. I'm holding up my big glass of water there. Or like I started meditating a little bit, trying to do that. The sand is very much, mine's not even in the water bottle. Mine's like just all over the floor. So yeah, but stuff like that, trying to do that every day, because I know I've got a list. I think I've got about 25 things. It sounds like a lot, but some of them are really minor. Like some of them just literally get out of bed at the right time, and like leave the house, go for a run. I'm doing cold showers and that because I find that useful. I know some people hate the idea of that, but I like it. I don't like it, but
I think it's perfectly fine. It's sort of there's a really wide movement of a lot of people that follow like the Andrew Hubermans and the Jordan Petersons and a lot of those intellectuals, and I think that they have a lot to offer in terms of just helping people become much more aware of themselves and their habituated self-sabotaging and things of that nature, and especially from a neurological standpoint. In Jordan Peterson in particular, I've been following him probably like 2015, because if I wasn't doing music or interior design or anything like that, I definitely would have gone for psychology, because it's just the most fascinating field for me personally. But I think that also requires a balance, because I think a lot of people sort of subscribe to just what these people say, and they sort of have this thin veneer of what they think intellect is by just repeating the same things that they say in like interviews or relationships or on dates to impress other people, and they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, And I think it takes a certain level of individuality and an intellect infused with individuality to take what it is that these individuals say and think about it. Just don't be like, that sounds smart, and there's a lot of them, bro. And a lot of them live in LA. A lot of them live in LA, and that's the God's honest truth. But I think for the most part, it is extremely beneficial, to learn and to read books, take notes on books, or listen to podcasts are a huge thing. Obviously, we're on one, and I think they're extremely insightful into helping people not feel so alone. Especially when they hear, their favorite guitarist, something like, going through something and sharing something and being vulnerable with something that they're going through. It's like, oh shit, like, my God, this is something that's real. It's not a joke. And it's not a joke, but, overall, man, I mean, I think, and that kind of coincides with a lot of this emotional renaissance, this emotional revolution in terms of being really honest with yourself and doing what it is that you feel like you need to do. And no matter what it is, man. And it's great that you have a routine. A routine is like, it's of paramount importance, man. So, some people will like get out of bed in the morning is superficial. No, it's not. It's really not. Like, drinking water, making your meals, flossing your teeth every day, it's not. I mean, it's incredibly important to just establish these things, because then eventually you're not going to need that list anymore. It's just going to become a thing that you do, like going to the gym. It's just a thing that I do. I don't think about it. I don't think about, am I in a mood to go to the gym? No, it's just something that I do all the time. I'm trying to think about meditating. I do it as much as I possibly can. I've been pretty bad with it lately, and that's okay. It's just a matter of being conscious of the things that you want to fix, right? And there'll be long stretches for 6 months where I'm meditating every day, and then life throws a curveball and it takes me away from that. It's okay to be kind to yourself too. If you can't do something, you don't necessarily want to harp on it, because, then you're just striving for perfection that you'll never reach, and you'll never be satisfied with your efforts. But ultimately, yeah, man, I think that's at first a huge, huge thing. Because then what happens is you get those 25 things done, they become second nature. So you can focus on 25 more things that are tier 2, tier 3, and if anyone doesn't have one, I strongly suggest you look into it, or, listen to a podcast, listen to some lectures, and it'll blow you away as long as you're honest with yourself.
I've been listening to loads of Andrew Huberman's stuff lately. I found his stuff so useful. Like I've shared a bit of it on my Instagram just because I want more people to sort of check it out. Like things like just getting sunlight in your eyes in the morning, I found it just helps so much in my routine. And like, what's funny actually, talking about the importance of routine, what I did with this whole ticking off the list thing, I've set myself a challenge of trying to do it for 100 days, and I'm recording myself every 10 days, like a little vlog thing, because I thought if I can make a video out of it, maybe that'll just be that extra little thing where I'm like, I will make sure that I do it. It's like just an extra safety net, I guess, to make sure that I'm sort of keeping up with it. And there are 2 times where I've sort of broken the routine. I'm allowing myself the odd day off as long as in advance I say that day I'm going to not do all of the things. If I just do it because I'm lazy, then that doesn't count. But like last night I had a gig that I got like a guest list invite to, and then I knew a lot of my friends were going to be there, so I was like, okay, I know I'm not going to get everything done today because I was going to be there for like early evening all the way through. Right. And also New Year's Eve, because I knew I just wanted to go and spend time with friends. And although I'm glad I broke the routine to do those things, the next morning, this morning, or even sometimes the following days, trying to pick all that stuff up again is so much harder. And it might be because the routine's a bit new to me still.
Yeah, but, for sure.
It made me think 2 things. One being, is the routine... what was I going to say? One was that, am I just feeling so much better that this is what I used to feel like even 2 weeks ago, because I'm on day like 16, I think. And I'm like, is this what I felt like 2 weeks ago all the time? I don't know. Right. And the other thing is just cemented the importance of that routine, I think. So,
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I feel like that, that would be if I could advise anyone, it sounds like you're advising people the same.
No, for sure. Absolutely, man. No doubt about that.
Yeah, nice one. Well, I mean, the hopefully, and thank you for sort of, I guess we're going into getting into some deep conversations, but I think people find that stuff useful, and I think that hopefully will be useful to people. I hate using the word useful because it sounds like, I don't know, it almost takes away from the. Feels like it takes away from the conversation slightly, but hopefully people can listen and benefit to some
Well,
degree, you know, from.
I guess if they made it to this point in the conversation, they either found it useful, thoughtful, or entertaining. And either way, it's useful, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm satisfied with that.
Awesome.
Welcome to this juncture in the podcast, you know?
Yeah,
Congrats.
yeah. Welcome, well done, anyone that made it here. If you haven't already gone and like, if you haven't meditated yourself into a
Right,
some
right,
sort of
right.
state or
Which is
whatever.
even better. So good for you.
Yeah, you can wake up now. Yeah, like, yeah, cool. Okay, so so what I need is a question for the next guest, so we can start their conversation.
Question for the next guest. Oh, let me see here.
Pressure's on.
If you, not if, but when you die, we'll pose it like this. If you were to die and whatever deity that you meet in whatever heaven you believe in says you can go back to Earth for like 5-10 minutes, what is it but you can't see any friends or family because you would traumatize the hell out of them because you're supposed to be dead. What would you do for that 5 minutes?
That's a good question. Yeah, I suppose that there's so many answers to that you might have over the course of your life that, you know, it'd be almost interesting to record your answer for that every year and just see what, you know, see.
Yeah,
how it
it's like
changes.
that Billie Eilish interview that the Vanity Fair does every year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a good. I like that question. That's good. Cool. Okay, and then also, if you've got an artist you think deserves some love, it'd be good to spread the love to them.
Okay, so I just heard this today. Actually, it's a very good friend of mine who I love dearly, and is just immensely talented. So, he drummed for me when I toured Europe, and I just adore him to pieces. Mike Mallion. So Mike Mallion just recently released some jazz fusion, sort of like Tigran Hamasyan, Dirty Loops infusion. But he's composing everything because he's not only a brilliant drummer, he's an amazing composer. And he has this whole new solo project that he's doing. And my God, you guys just need to listen to it. He released one song and it's just absolutely beautiful. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's really inspiring to see him playing off his full potential of what he's capable of. So I would definitely check out Mike Mallion's solo stuff because I'm not sure if he's doing a release or whatnot, but he released one song and you got to hear it. So check him out. It's unbelievable. Good stuff. Really good stuff.
I can second that. He was episode 6. I spoke to him.
Okay.
Quite a long time ago. It was like best part of a year ago now. And he was awesome.
Wow.
He was so lovely to chat to. Yeah. So
that's my favorite, man. I love that guy.
I second that. Yeah. Awesome. And if you have anything you want to promote to the world.
Well, first I just, thank everyone for listening, especially if you made it this far into the podcast. And I thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. I know we've been trying to do this for a while.
I said, actually, it's funny. I was just looking through, I did an episode with Cole, and I was saying in that episode, yeah, I think I'm going to chat to Angel in like September or something. So there's evidence.
Yeah, man. Oh God. Yeah, we've been doing this for a while, but better late than pregnant. So here we are. And, but yeah, I have a new release coming out very soon, and, single drops January 17th, a single called 8. They're releasing a music video for that as well. And, you'll be able to find that pretty much on all my socials and stuff. So if you want to check it out, be more than welcome to. It'll be there for your enjoyment. And thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
It's all good. One last real quick question.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if this won't be a spoiler actually because it'll be out by then. Where does the guitar go when you throw the guitar? Are you not like that's what?
Oh man!
Have you seen Prince when he's playing that solo and then he throws it and it's just gone? Like I know you didn't throw.
Cool?
Have you seen Prince does a live solo? It's While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Have you seen that?
No, but
man.
I'll tell you one thing I did see. I played a show with Malmsteen in Mexico, and he was at one end of the stage, and he just flung that guitar over his head, and his guitar tech went.
Oh no, that's awesome.
He hasn't dropped the guitar since, apparently. And I was just like, did that just happen? Did that actually just happen? Yngwie didn't even look back. He just went. He was at the farthest point on that stage, and he just went whoosh. I was like, holy crap, man. So I'm assuming it's the same sort of vibe. I did on a much smaller level.
Yeah, it's not quite.
But, yeah. Well, it's a relics. You know, I just fucking threw it, and just wherever it lands, it lands. No, I'm kidding. Someone grabbed it.
Awesome. I just had to ask that because that was in my list of questions. I thought I've got to figure out where that is.
Yeah. Apparently, because we did probably about 9 or 10 takes, and I'm actually editing a behind the scenes of that music video. Because it was a tough thing to take off the guitar, throw it, jump off stage, spin into like the whole dance routine. So ego check, right? So by like the 7th or 8th time, I felt like I was getting the hang of it, right? I was like, oh, this is cool. And I look at the gaffer who was grabbing my guitar when I was throwing it, and I was like, yo, Kev, these are getting better, right? This was it. He was like crouched down. He just goes, you're getting worse. Because literally, as I was throwing the guitar, it was like hitting the wall and hitting the floor. At first, I was a little more conservative, but as I was getting a little bit more into the process, I was just throwing it without thinking about it because my priority was hitting my marks. And I remember he was just like, you're getting worse.
It's just a pile of guitars on
like busted into laughter. It was really funny.
Just a pile of guitars on the wrong side. Like, oops, sorry.
My God, can you imagine?
Cool. Well, speaking of ego deaths and that, this rounds it off nicely. So thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.